Hey everyone, welcome to Math Talk. I'm your host, Brian Heitzler, and today we're going to look at part 3 of our little series on interpreting charts and graphs. And we're going to look at pie graphs, also known as circle graphs. So let's look at a couple of examples. So we have an example of a pie graph here, and we have a couple questions. Now, before I get into it, one of the things you really want to look at with pie graphs is a pie graph will always represent 100% of the data. It will always add up to 100%. If it doesn't, there's something wrong with the data, it's a problem. It should always represent 100% because you really shouldn't have 95% of a pie or a circle. It should be complete. So keep that in mind as you look at your questions and your data. Also, there's different ways to represent the sections of the pie. You have examples like what you see here where they're percentages, and you have examples like the next one we're going to look at where they're just numbers. So keep that in mind as well as we look at our two questions. Question number 1 asks, how many more students participate in running than soccer? So we have a student sample of 400 students, which is really important, and certain percentages of different sports. So the key to this question is it's a little tricky because they ask you how many more students. They don't tell you how much more of a percent of students. They want to know the actual number of students. And so we don't give you the numbers. You have to figure that out based on the percentages. So let me show you how you can do that. Question 1. So if you want to know the total number of students represented by the different percentages, you need to figure out what percent of 4, or what the number, for example, let's look at baseball. It says 24%. 24% of 400 would give you the number of students. For running, 22% of 400 would give you the total number of students in running. And so because we're focusing on running and soccer in our question, let's look at those two percentages. If you want to figure out the percentage of a number, there's a little trick in math. The word of means multiply. So 22% of 400 means 22% times 400, which you can type right into your calculator. I would recommend using 0.22 as your 22% because any percent can be represented as a decimal. It's basically whatever that number is your decimal. 22% is 0.22, 33% is 0.33, things like that. So if I type in 0.22 times 400, that's going to get me the number of students in running. And that's going to end up being 88, which you again check on your calculator. It's always good to check your work on that. And then I need to compare that to soccer, 10% for soccer. So 10% is 0.1 times 400 is 40. So I have 88 running students and 40 soccer students. How many more running? Well, 88 minus 40 is going to get me 48. So that's how many more students there are. Another trick you could have done, what would have worked, is you could basically figure out the difference in percentage. It's 12%. And then take 12% of 400. That's going to get you your same number. So a couple ways you can approach it. Let's look at number 2. Which sport makes up approximately 1/3 of the students sampled? So this is, to me, this is actually a little bit easier of a question. There's no work involved at all. Assuming you know representations of fractions. So 1/3 is about 33.3%, which means I need to find the sport that's closest to 33.3%, which fortunately is easy because football is 33%, which is basically the same number. So my answer to question number 2 is football. And that's all there is. Sometimes you'll be asked questions that require no actual math. It's just a matter of, can you interpret the graph? Let's look at another example of a chart or pie graph. This one is a little bit different. They give you numbers. This one happens to be the number of Skittles in a pack. And there's different colors, as you can see by the legend. And they ask you one question. So they ask you what percent of the Skittles are red. So this time, instead of going from percentages to numbers, we need to go from numbers to percents. And so what's really important for that is that you understand percentage is really a part of a whole. So we need to figure out what part is represented by red versus the whole thing. And so the red, as you can see, is 9 out of, any percent can really be written as a fraction, the total number of Skittles in my pack. Well, if I go around and add up all the numbers, 9 plus 6 is 15, plus 3 is 18, plus 5 is 23, plus 2 is 25. So 9 out of 25, how do I turn that to a percentage? Well, there's a couple ways you can do it. One of the ways is you can type that as a fraction or division problem in your calculator, 9 divided by 25, and that'll get you a decimal, which I said in the last example, any decimal can be represented as a percent. 9 over 25 happens to actually be 0.36. And 0.36 is basically going to be 36%, because that's how that can be represented. To get to change any decimal to a percentage, really all you need to do is move the decimal point to the right twice because you're multiplying it by 100. So if I move this to the right twice, 1, 2, I get 36. So 36%. And so that's what percentage of red Skittles are in this packet. So I hope this helps as you get to circle or pie graph questions. Again, you want to analyze your chart, look at the data that's presented to you, and really look at the questions and what they're asking. It could require that there's no actual math involved. It's just a matter of interpreting the picture in front of you. And I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, it's Brian, your host of Math Talk. I just want to thank everyone for watching my videos on YouTube and following me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you feel like after watching these videos, you still need the better classroom setting or one-on-one, and you live in the Palm Beach County area, come visit our website at www.geds.com. Come check out the different locations that we have and find one that suits you best, that's closest to where you are, and you can come take classes. Thanks for watching.